As you may or may not know, my daughter was very ill with a plethora of immunological problems, including very serious juvenile arthritis. And it just about killed her. It did destroy 2 of her joints, and she had another 38 that were affected. And so she was always in a lot of pain. And I looked into the role that diet played in arthritis through the scientific literature for a couple of years and found 2 things, and they were somewhat contradictory. And one was that there was no real evidence that any specific elements of diet had been linked to juvenile arthritis specifically. And this was a major but. If people who were arthritic fasted completely, then their arthritic symptoms often disappeared. And so I thought that had something to do with the consequences of fasting. But then my daughter started to play, and my wife as well, very intensely with the diet. We went to a nutritionist who recommended an elimination diet at one point because we did notice that she would react to strawberries and oranges. And within a day, her thumbs would swell or her toes would swell. And so we knew there were some things she was eating. We had her tested for immunological reaction to food, but when we tested her, she showed a hyperreaction to virtually everything they tested her for. And we concluded at that point, well, there's no damn way she could be reacting to everything she's eating. Well, she went on this elimination diet and showed a bit of reduction in symptom, but the elimination diet made no sense. There was no rhyme or reason to what you could eat and what you couldn't eat. And so she started to experiment with more restricted diets and eventually discovered that if she only ate beef, and it turns out for her it has to be beef that isn't aged, then all of her immunological symptoms disappeared. And then my wife and I started playing with that diet. And so I've only been eating beef fundamentally, for almost 5 years now. And I've talked to hundreds of people, and we've had messages from thousands of people showing that this is, first of all, radically effective as a weight loss strategy, and also seems to produce remarkable effects on the general disease symptom front. Back in November of 2021, there was a study published by a Harvard group, which wasn't a perfect study because it was retrospective self-report, but they assessed 2,500 people who had been on a carnivore diet for 6 months and showed something approximating a 90% reduction in all disease symptoms. And it was the only scientific paper I ever read where the surprise of the researchers was palpable between the lines in the scientific writing. Because scientific article, all that emotion, negative or positive, is pretty much ironed out. But these people were so shocked by what they found that it couldn't help leaking into the document. And so, well, this has been quite surprising to me, because I never imagined in my wildest dreams, number one, that you could just live on meat, and number two, that it would have such a salutary effect. So for me, I lost 52 pounds in 7 months. I went from 212 pounds to 165, which is exactly what I weighed when I was 23. And I've maintained that weight since. I can put on muscle mass with no problem, even though I'm 62. I had a host of inflammatory conditions, some of which were quite serious, including peripheral uveitis, which sometimes blinds people, in my right eye, and it disappeared completely, along with psoriasis and gastric reflux disorder, and interestingly enough, gum disease, which is technically incurable, which is linked to cardiovascular degeneration, and which has gone away 100% in my case, according to multiple measures that my dentists have taken. And so when I've talked to many people who've lost 100 pounds in a year as they come to my talks, and who are just beside themselves, so to speak, as a consequence of experimenting with this diet. So that's the story. It's very strange. I don't talk about it that much because I'm not a nutritionist and because I'm still shell-shocked by it. But I'll tell you, it's something to be 60 and to have the same essential body morphology that I had when I was 23. And that had all disappeared for me in my early 50s.
Make sure to follow and share to see upcoming life-changing content.